Hyenne is proud to partner The Urbanist on Monocle Radio. Hyenne is a leading global real estate investment manager. Hyenne owns and operates $93 billion of assets across property types and on behalf of a diverse group of institutional and private wealth clients. Hyenne's ambition? Well, in the words of its chairman and CEO, Jeffrey Hyenne, to be the best real estate investor, manager and partner in the world. Find out how Hyenne is making that dream a reality. Head to hyenne.com now. Hyenne, a leader in real estate investing and management since 1957. One of the most famous and frequently visited sites in the city of Paris holds a history many of those who visit the monument may not be familiar with. The building was originally constructed as a pardon for the so-called moral decline of France following the French Revolution. So how does this landmark, which many saw as a symbol of repression when built, feel in the hearts of modern-day Parisians? You're listening to Tall Stories, a Monocle production brought to you by the team behind The Urbanist. I'm Andrew Tuck. In this episode, Carla Hyenne tells us the history of Paris's Sacré-Cœur basilica.
The Basilica of the Sacré-Cœur is one of the most emblematic buildings of Paris. Sitting on top of Montmartre, a neighborhood famous for its bohemian atmosphere, the Sacré-Cœur watches over the city of Paris with its imposing structure and large white cupolas. Just like you can see the Eiffel Tower from every corner of the city, you can also see the Basilica anywhere you are in Paris, to the delight of many and sometimes the bitterness of others. The story of the Basilica is a tumultuous one, and one that still resonates today. To understand how one of the most famous buildings in France became a point of controversy, we have to go back 1 century before its conception to the time of the French Revolution. In 1789, the French overthrew the absolutist regime and dissolved the monarchy that had reigned for over a millennia. The decades that followed were turbulent. The country experienced its first republic, followed by Napoleonic empires and monarchies once again, and culminated 100 years later in the occupation of Paris by the Prussians, when Napoleon was defeated in the Franco-Prussian War. It was in this context, in 1870, that a French bishop proposed the plans for the Sacré-Cœur. It was to be a holy place dedicated to the Sacred Heart of Jesus as a symbol of divine pardon for the moral decline of France and the loss of conservative values since the Revolution. At the same time that the plans came together for the Basilica, Paris was occupied by the Prussians, and the people of Paris were growing increasingly unhappy with the occupation and the lack of initiative from the French governing body to take the city back. This sentiment gave room for a new group to form and take matters into their own hands. They called themselves the Paris Commune, and they were a radical, socialist, and democratic group who campaigned for progressive reforms like free education, workers' rights, and the decentralization of power. However, the Paris Commune was short-lived. It was brutally repressed by the French army 3 months later, and a conservative Third Republic was established. In reality, the idea for the Basilica was proposed before and independently of the Paris Commune, but because it represented conservative values and came at the same time that a progressive, socialist movement was repressed, it became known as a symbol of punishment against the revolutionaries and the working class who had united and fallen, campaigning against the conservative bourgeoisie and social inequalities. France has come a long way since then, and today recognizes many of the rights the Paris Commune fought for, such as free education, women's rights, the decentralization of power, fair conditions for workers, to name a few. But the story of the Sacré-Cœur still generates debate today. In 2020, the French government wanted to give the building the title of a historical monument, and this resurfaced the complicated history of the Basilica. Political parties opposed and delayed the decision for 2 years, under grounds that it was an insult against the French who fought for the ideals of the Paris Commune and were punished for it. The Basilica tells a powerful story and shows us that our architecture represents much more than physical structures and the materials they are made of. Some buildings, like the Sacré-Cœur, represent a period of power struggles and repression. Other buildings embody messages of hope, renewal, vision, and progress, like the Eiffel Tower, for example. The power of the built environment is why we build monuments, fight for the preservation of our buildings and neighborhoods, or give meaningful names to our streets. It helps us understand who we are as a society, where we came from, and inspire where we might go next.
Tall Stories is a Monocle production from the team behind The Urbanist. This episode was written by Carla Hyenne and produced and edited by David Stevens. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to receive new episodes every week. I'm Andrew Tuck. Goodbye, and thank you for listening, City Lovers.